and welcome to the City Council regular meeting on Monday, June 15th. Leslie, would you
I sure will.
please lead us in the invocation and the pledge of allegiance?
Yes, ma'am. Councilman Sluter?
Here.
Councilman Adair?
Here.
Councilman Torgerson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nail?
Here.
And Mayor Pitt.
Here.
And please stand for the invocation and pledge. Bless those present, O Lord, that the business conducted here this evening will be for the continued betterment of our city. And in keeping with thy commandments, we ask in God's name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Executive Order Number 20-69, issued by the Office of Governor Ron DeSantis on March 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and by utilizing communications media technology such as telephonic or video conferencing, as provided by Section 120.I4.5B2 Florida statutes, or members of the council appearing remotely and for public participation. While a quorum of council members are physically present for this meeting, along with a minimal number of key staff, we are following the governor's emergency orders and the city's emergency declaration. I'd like now to ask the city attorney to explain the procedures for public comment and participation in this meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. The following are the city's rules for utilizing communications media technology as provided by Section 120.545B2 Florida statutes, as adopted by the City Council on April 6, 2020. This meeting is being streamed on YouTube Live and on the city's Facebook page. The agenda and backup material and the agenda packet are posted on the city's website as usual. As set forth in the notice for this meeting, also posted last week, members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting were asked to review the agenda and submit their questions or comments on agenda items by mail to the city clerk with their name and address and a reference to the agenda item on which they wish to comment. It was also explained in the notice that questions or comments on agenda items could also be mailed directly to the city clerk's attention at the City of Gulf Breeze, City Hall, 1070 Shoreline Drive, Gulf Breeze, Florida, 32561. The city requested that all correspondence be received by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time today, June 15th. As we go through the agenda during this meeting tonight, the mayor will ask for public comment on the agenda item as usual. At that point in the meeting, the clerk will read the questions or comments submitted, and the mayor and council members will then respond as if the comments were being made in person. If there are follow-up comments or questions or others wish to be heard, the comments should be made through YouTube Live by providing your name, address, and question or comment on the chat box, which will then be read and responded to by the council. Anyone who would like to participate during the public forum at the end of the meeting should also comment on YouTube Live with your name, address, and question or comment. The standard rules also apply, with comments being limited to 3 minutes and comments on an agenda topic having to be applicable to that agenda topic that is being considered. And are there any questions on the process?
No.
Proceed.
All right. I'll ask for approval of the minutes from the June 1st meeting.
Move approval.
Okay, we have a second. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Vote is 5-0. Now we'll move on to ordinances, and I'll ask the city clerk to do first reading of ordinance number 08-2020.
I apologize, I believe we're on second reading. Did we say second reading?
No, I said
First
first.
reading. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, now it's some business. All right. Ordinance number 08-2020, an ordinance of the City Gulf Breeze, Florida, amending section 2-1 of the Code of Ordinances regarding the deadline for qualification of candidates, providing for severability, providing for conflict, providing for codification, providing for effective.
All right, thank you. Sam?
Yes. Mayor and council, at your last meeting, you heard of, issues related to timing, for the city's election qualifying period. You also heard that it has been necessary, historically for councils to, adopt an ordinance amending the city's historic qualifying period of 30 days. And in discussion with, Mary Jane as your city attorney, you directed that she draft a ordinance which brings us more into line with what the state standard is. Leslie Dyer, as your certified city clerk, had polled local governments throughout the state of Florida and found that just our requirement for 30-day qualifying period is very far outside of the norm. And so the ordinance that you have in front of you for first reading is consistent with the discussion at your last meeting. It amends section 2-1 of the city's code of ordinance to change the qualifying period to become a candidate for mayor or city council in the city of Gulf Breeze, so that it opens on the first Monday of August and closes at 12 noon on Friday, 10 business days thereafter. This is consistent with the requirement from the Santa Rosa County Supervisor of Elections. This ordinance also amends section 2-1 to affirm that those seeking to qualify must comply with applicable Florida statutory provisions, including the provisions on payment of an election assessment, and also with provisions of the Florida Election Code applicable to municipalities, chapters 97 through 106, including provisions on payment of a qualifying fee or use of the petition process in lieu of payment of the fee. One last thing that we'll add is Mary Jane had also shared with you some conflicting provisions in the city's charter. And because the provision related to petitions is not consistent with Florida statutes, it's in fact invalid under section 100.3605. And for that reason, there's not an amendment of the charter required in order for the council to approve this ordinance on first reading. So with that, staff would recommend approval and for the council to set a second reading and public hearing for June 29th, 2020. That means it would be the first item on your special meeting agenda for that evening. And Mary Jane, if I left anything else? Okay.
Okay. Leslie, do we have any comments or questions from the council?
No, ma'am, I've not received anything.
All right, thank you. Any discussion from council?
I have one quick question. Given that the time period is much shorter than something like a hurricane, we have provisions already to be able to fix that.
Actually, Leslie and I have discussed that, and we would do that through an emergency declaration. We
That's
could
all.
adjust it and, working towards with the supervisor of elections office usually the deadline,
Okay.
but we had to adjust it, in an emergency situation.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Oh, sorry.
Move to approve.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. And then we will do the second reading of this ordinance, schedule it for June 29th, a special meeting. All right, good.
Comment too, that, the time for that meeting is at 4 p.m.
Okay.
So it'll immediately follows the workshops.
All right, got it. Thank you.
I was going to look at Leslie, but what she said.
Consent agenda, we have two items on the consent agenda, and that is resurfacing the High Point tennis courts and Shoreline Park outdoor basketball courts, and Woodland Park enhancement project, and we have good results of both of those. Would anyone like either of these removed from consent agenda? All right, no, do we have any, public comments or questions?
No, ma'am, for sure.
Do we have a motion?
Move for approval,
Okay. We have a,
consent agenda
oh,
items,
yes.
Alpha and Bravo.
Second.
Very good, very good. All right, we have a motion and a second, and any discussion? No, hearing none, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. We have, one action item, and that's proposal for tank mapping and structural analysis. Samantha?
Thank you, Mayor and Council, because you've had a workshop, the agenda is light this evening, but sometimes when you have a light agenda, you can run the risk of council, opening the floor for questions that you may not anticipate. And I thought you might have questions about, mapping, and therefore Thomas is here tonight, so if you have any questions, other than the recommendation I'm about to read off this page, which is, staff request that council approve the survey by Utility Service Company for the elevated tank communications equipment for $9,167. You have the attached bids and lowest quote in front of you. That Thomas is happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, does anybody have any questions?
Exactly is a tank map.
And this is a communication factor. They're gonna go in and place out every value that is on the tablet and figure out whether that is an active value and who it goes to, or if it's a dead value from a previous tenant and we can pull it up. And this also includes a structural analysis, because there are some class members of the tent is a lot over the news, so it's pretty old, and then you to figure out which members people in the place.
All right, thank you. Leslie, do we have any questions or comments? All right, thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. All right, next we have got discussion items. All right, we'll move on to public forum.
I have not received any comments, for public.
All right, next, council comments. JP, let's start with,
No, I'm good.
all right, Councilman Adair.
Yeah, actually, I do, if I could. I wanted to talk to you about this earlier, so I just didn't get a chance to this week, because last week I was extremely busy with work. But, in view of the recent, events with the, George Floyd episode that occurred, I'm just wondering, I mean, first off, I want to say that I'm always in favor of our law enforcement department. I think they do a great job. And I think I would like to ask the question for the best benefit of our employees, which are the law enforcement officers. Do we need to review our policy on, I guess you would say, enforcement, or for the officers' benefit to know that we're current and up to date with use of force policy, so that they know what they're doing is good and correct and currently within the law, so that they don't get into a position where they feel like they maybe make a mistake, or what can I do and what can I not do? Is it possibly a good time for us to review our current policy?
I'll respond to that, and, Chief Hawthorne is coordinating also with the Pensacola Police Chief, and they are, ensuring that, all of our officers, are current and up to date on sensitivity training. And so that is something that's happening. I mean, all of our officers go through sensitivity training, but they feel like this is a really good time for everyone to, go through that again. As it relates to the standard operating procedures of our law enforcement agency, that is not the purview of our city council. And so the council approved a personnel manual, but as it relates to law enforcement, that's actually the jurisdiction of state and federal agencies. One thing that I'm very proud about in our police department is we are a small city, but in fact, our police department is diverse. And so we have made meaningful hires in other departments in order to increase diversity. We have made gains in our finance department is more difficult in public works. It is more difficult, to find, you know, trained, you know, subject matter experts when the cost of living is as high as it is. But we are being very meaningful about those hires, where we can. In fact, we recently, just within the last month, made a diversity hire, but our police department has led the way. And so we're really proud that it's a small department, but those meaningful hires are made. I can share with you that, you know, 4 years ago upon my hire, it was one of the first things shared with me by the police chief. It is something that they are proud of. I spoke today with Mr. Bill Ween, who is working with Julian McQueen. They have both been on the board of various, you know, nonprofits in the Pensacola region, and he has just extended any type of citizen engagement that they can offer in the way of just continuing the conversation of making sure that we include those diversity hires. And, you know, Mr. Bill Ween, he helps a lot with recruitment with his company. And so, with Mr. Ween being a resident, certainly we appreciate that very much, and we're having that conversation at a department head level. But as it relates to law enforcement, Chief Hawthorne has been very proactive. He's ensuring that everyone is receiving sensitivity training in addition to what they're required to receive. And that they are staying very mindful of those protocols. But standard operating procedures of our law enforcement is not something that the city council deliberates.
No, I'm not looking for that. I just want to make sure that we give them the support that they need, that they feel comfortable in their job. If there's a review of a specific, because I understand that as law changes, that could also change the policy and the way they handle use of force. So I just want to make sure that we support our guys as much as we can, if they may need to update, you know, policy, look at it, or take a look at it, and make sure that maybe even a retraining, just to make sure that they're all comfortable. Because, you know, just as a citizen, just looking out, but I would be very concerned and nervous about being in law enforcement. You know, with what you see on TV and what's going on, I'd be afraid. I would want to make sure that we support and give them the tools that they need, so that they feel confident when they're out there that they're doing what's best for themselves as well as, you know, the public.
I will say one conversation that Chief Hawthorne and I had earlier in the year is about the body cameras and the life expectancy of them. Not this coming year, but next year, they are up for replacement. And he had talked about most of the camera footage that we use is the dash cam. It is not uncommon at all to receive a call from someone who is stating that a police officer conducted themselves inappropriately. Sometimes it's just that a police officer was belligerent when issuing a ticket, or a police officer entered a premises incorrectly. This is common. It is, I can share with you as a city manager in other cities, you have people in emotional situations, and they're gonna have viewed a situation differently. And so those cameras are, as you just said, Councilman Hebert, they're to protect our officers and also the citizen, that we're able to review them. And as technology has improved with the instant Bluetooth, that means we capture, we have archived that video. It cannot be manipulated or altered or otherwise. And so earlier in the year, we had talked about maybe we don't need to have the body cams. And maybe we just use the dash cams, since, you know, the majority of what we do is responding to issues on our highway. But because of this issue, Chief Hawthorne came back to me and said, you know what, we just realized how important body cams are, because it just takes that one issue. So at this moment, the police department is not asking anything of administration or the council, but I can tell you that as those body cams come up, there's been that discussion internally. They're very grateful to have them, and they're going to be asking to have them replaced.
My discussions with Chief Hawthorne is revealed that, at least from what I hear from him, is that they really try to embrace the philosophy of restraint. Not just that issue, but practically everything that we manage.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we give them the tools they need so that they're comfortable. That they don't have any confusion in their heart. Not that I would think that they would be doing something incorrect. I want to do something that's going to back them.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. So that's all my concern was, because it just seems like there's a lot of confusion going on in the country. And I would think that some policemen, officers, they probably just take a stand back approach, we don't know what to do, because they're afraid to do anything. They don't know, so I just thought it would be a good opportunity to give them the tools that they need to, oh yeah, I'm comfortable with this, I'm comfortable with that, this is a stay away from that, this is, they don't put themselves in a position that they're in. That's a tough job.
It is.
They have a tough job.
Good question.
Thank you.
That's all it's.
I appreciate you asking the question.
One thing, one of our original citizens of Beth Breeze passed away over the weekend, Chris Nicholson. She was 99, lived over here on Malaga, and then, I think, lived in a house that actually had been moved from Pensacola or someplace over to here back in the 50s. Very large part of the history of Breeze. Passed away. Great lady.
All right, I think that's it. So, meeting